One of Australia's biggest YouTubers just admitted on camera that he is censoring himself on the issue of child marriage. That's the real story we need to talk about. Less than 24 hours ago, Isaac Butterfield released a video called "I'm Ashamed to be Australian." In it, he correctly highlights the Australian Federal Police data, showing a nearly 30% surge in forced marriage reports nationwide. But then, he makes a stunning admission. His words, not mine. The majority of these cases happen to come from one religion. And that religion I won't name because, the video will just be seen by less people. That fear, that deliberate silence, is precisely why this problem is getting worse. And it's why in this video, I'm going to give you the unfiltered data that others are too scared to touch. Because when our biggest voices are afraid to even name the problem, how can we ever solve it? It starts by listening to the people who aren't, and in a moment we're going to discuss the one person who has more authority and more courage on this subject than any algorithm-chasing influencer. We just talked about it isn't a one-off. It's not just one creator being a bit gutless. It is a symptom of a much larger disease running through our entire society. And to understand why that disease is so deadly, we need to think like a doctor for a second. Imagine you go to your GP, you feel crook, you found a lump. The doctor runs the tests and knows, dead set knows, you have cancer. But instead of looking you in the eye and saying the word, they just mumble about problematic cell growth because they're terrified of upsetting you. How can they possibly prescribe the cure, the chemo, the radiation, if they refuse to even speak the name of the disease? They can't. You cannot solve a problem that you refuse to diagnose. If you cannot name the core reason, you have already lost the battle. But while most of our so-called leaders are acting like that cowardly doctor, there is one woman who has had the courage to make that diagnosis, consistently, for decades. Her name is Ayaan Hirsi Ali, and let me be absolutely clear. Ayaan isn't some academic in an ivory tower or another politician talking down to us. Her authority is not earned from a textbook. It's forged in fire. She is a survivor. Born in Somalia, her own father arranged for her to be married off at age 22. Facing a life she did not choose, she did something most of us can barely imagine. She fled. She ran, sought asylum in the Netherlands, educated herself, and eventually fought her way into the Dutch parliament. She has lived the brutal reality that others only discuss in hushed, politically correct tones. This gives her a moral clarity that is simply unimpeachable, a clarity that others lack. Ayaan has dedicated her life to exposing how specific Islamic doctrines enable systemic harm to women, arguing that our own Western fear of causing offense is the single biggest obstacle to solving these problems. So, in the spirit of a doctor who is not afraid to deliver a diagnosis, let's do what others are too scared to. Let's name the disease. Let's look directly at the religion and the specific verses that are being used right now to justify this. Alright, the religion Isaac Butterfield was so afraid to name is Islam. And the reason for that fear is simple. This problem isn't cultural or some vague misinterpretation. The justification is written down in black and white, creating what is considered a divine precedent from the life of the Prophet Muhammad himself. This isn't an allegation. This is a direct look at the primary source data. We're going to one of the most trusted and authoritative books in Sunni Islam, the Sahih al-Bukhari. In collection 5134, it quotes the Prophet's wife, Aisha, herself. She says, "The Prophet married me when I was 6 years old, and he consummated his marriage with me when I was 9 years old." Let that sink in. This isn't a fringe text. It is foundational. And if you think that's just ancient history, let me show you how that 9th century text shapes 21st century ethics. In a recent video, a prominent Islamic scholar, himself the father of 13 daughters, proudly stated that if he had a 6-month-old daughter, he would give her to the Prophet. He clarifies that this isn't just a choice. For him, it is a divine command. The precedent overrides everything, even basic parental instinct. And this ideology has consequences right here at home. The numbers don't lie. New South Wales has Australia's largest Muslim population. It has also recorded 117 reported cases of forced or child marriage since 2018 alone. The doctrine and the data are linked, so we've just laid out the hard evidence directly from the texts. Isaac Butterfield said he was afraid to name the religion. Now that you've seen the proof, was he being cowardly or just pragmatic? I'm genuinely interested in your take. Let me know in the comments. Now I can already hear the keyboards. But what about other religions? Doesn't the Bible have problematic passages too? It is the standard predictable deflection. It's the whataboutism trap designed to derail this exact conversation by making all problems seem equal. But they are not. And we're not going to sidestep it. We're going to walk straight into that argument and dismantle it, because understanding the fundamental difference is critical. And that's exactly what we are going to do next. So let's deal with that deflection head on. But what about the Bible argument? This tactic has a name. It's called whataboutism, and is the first refugee for anyone who is afraid of the specific facts being presented. It's an intellectually gutless attempt to muddy the waters. We even see it from people trying to have this conversation. In his own video on the topic, Isaac Butterfield felt the need to immediately offer a disclaimer, saying, quote, "There's dogshit stuff in the Bible as well. Terrible stories about incest and marriage and whatever. This is a textbook example of diluting a specific evidence-based criticism out of fear. And let's be blunt, what another religion did or didn't do hundreds or thousands of years ago is completely and utterly irrelevant to the specific text-based Islamic doctrine that is creating real-world problems in Australia today. It's like a dodgy accountant trying to excuse fraud in their ledger by pointing out another company also cooked its books. One crime doesn't cancel the other. You just have two separate problems. So let me be absolutely clear. You have the right to criticize an ideology on its own merits. You don't need to ask for permission, and you don't need to soften the blow with a nervous disclaimer that only weakens your argument. You don't need a qualifier to criticize Islam. You can just criticize Islam. Now, I know what some of you are probably thinking. Sarah, this is an interesting debate, but what does any of this have to do with me, my mortgage, and the price of groceries? And my answer is everything. These ideas are not just abstract concepts. They have a cost, a real dollars and cents cost that is being paid by you. It's a hidden tax on your family's future, built directly into the economic system you're struggling in. And in the next section, we are going to follow the money. I'm going to show you the numbers, and you'll see exactly how this silent cultural surrender is hitting your back pocket. Okay, let's follow the money. The refusal to confront these doctrines, to even name them, isn't just a failure of courage. It creates hidden economic consequences. Because religious precedents that greenlight early marriage are the same ones that sustain significantly higher fertility rates in those communities. Now here is the official data, the data that is almost never discussed in the same breath as public spending. According to the ABS census, the completed fertility rate for Muslim women in Australia is 3.03 births. The national average is 2.02. That's nearly 50% higher. Okay, stop, just for a second. Let that number, 3.03 versus 2.02, actually land. Because that's not just a statistic for a government report. That is a direct debit notice for your bank account. And I'm about to show you the line items you are paying for. This demographic reality creates a massive, ongoing, and growing demand on public services. We're talking about housing, schooling for your kids, welfare payments, and policing, all funded directly by your taxes. It is a quiet, unacknowledged wealth transfer. A transfer from the pockets of working, mortgage-paying Australians to subsidise the real-world consequences of a doctrine we are all supposed to be too afraid to even name. And the cost doesn't stop there. The problem gets worse because of a massive enforcement gap. The Australian Federal Police recorded 118 forced marriage reports in a single year. NSW alone has seen 117 underage cases since 2018. But despite this, how many convictions have we had nationally since the law was created back in 2013? 2. Just 2. This gap ensures the problem grows, and so do the long-term cost for policing, social services, and welfare that you are footing the bill for. So let's be absolutely clear. The polite silence, the looking away, the whataboutism, it's not free. It's a direct subsidy. You are paying for it. But the real question isn't just what it costs. It's how this system is protected. It's not an accident. It's a system, a machine with moving parts, designed to keep you paying and keep them unaccountable. And when you look closely, you see it's a 4-step rigged game. And next, I'm going to expose every single step. Alright, here it is. The 4-step machine that takes your money to pay for a problem it refuses to name. This isn't just about a few isolated incidents. This is a total systemic failure, and the official state policy of multiculturalism has become the perfect shield to hide it behind. First, it starts with the source code, a religious doctrine that allows or even encourages a practice that is harmful and illegal in our country. We've been through the texts, we know it's there. That's the seed. Second, policy paralysis. Politicians terrified of being called racist or Islamophobic respond not with firm law enforcement, but with vague, weak talking points about cultural sensitivity. They see the problem, but they choose to look away because confronting it would mean a tough, uncomfortable conversation they are not brave enough to have. The policy of multiculturalism, which was supposed to be about celebrating food and festivals, has been twisted into a weapon of inaction, a get-out-of-jail-free card for ignoring genuine harm. Third, and this is where the numbers expose the lie, we get enforcement theatre. We have tough-sounding laws against forced marriage, laws that politicians love to talk about. But it's a performance. The system is demonstrably broken. We have over 100 official reports of underage marriages each year, overwhelmingly from specific religious communities. Yet, since 2013, how many national convictions have we had? 2. Just 2. The reports are real, but the enforcement is pure theatre. And it's not because the police are incompetent. It's because a real prosecution would mean walking into a community and confronting religious norms head-on. And as academic studies from places like Flinders University confirm, those Islamic family law norms completely complicate the legal definition of consent, creating a minefield of hidden cases that our secular system cannot handle, so long as it refuses to name the religious context. Which brings us to the 4th and final step of this rigged game. You, the taxpayer, are left holding the bag. You pay for the specialist police units that investigate these crimes but aren't allowed to solve them. You pay for the increased welfare and social services for the victims. You pay for the strain on our public schools and housing. You are footing the bill for the consequences of a problem that the very system you fund deliberately and systematically ignores. So let's be absolutely clear. The YouTubers are scared to name it. The media is scared to name it. The politicians are, paid, blind, not to name it. We've seen how it starts with the doctrine, we've seen how it costs you real money, and now we see the 4-step machine that keeps it all running. We've seen the whole rigged system from start to finish, and after all that, there's really only one question left to answer. What now? So, what now? That's the question we were left with, and the answer isn't complicated, it's just hard. Let's be precise about what we've done here together. We started with a YouTuber's fear, we dug into the doctrinal evidence he was too afraid to name, and then we calculated the direct economic price your family is paying for this collective silence. This entire journey, this entire analysis, was a diagnostic process. We were giving a name to the illness, because the first rule of fixing anything is this: if you cannot name the core reason, you have already lost. Diagnosis is not hate, it is the first step toward hope. And this is where it stops being an abstract debate about them. It becomes a direct question about your own future. Will your children inherit a society where the law applies equally to all? Or one where your family is financially forced to subsidize parallel systems that fundamentally undermine Australian values? You have the right to criticize that. You have the right to demand honesty. And that honesty requires courage. But we don't have to invent it from scratch. The path was paved by people like Ayaan Hirsi Ali. She faced death threats, the murder of her colleague, and exile, all because she refused to be silent. Her example proves that speaking the truth, while risky, is essential for the survival of a free society. We don't all need to be Ayaan Hirsi Ali, but we do need to find a fraction of her courage in our own lives. My job here was to give you the diagnostic tools, to lay out the evidence and show you the system. The diagnosis is complete. Now, you have what you need to demand the right cure from our leaders. If this diagnosis makes sense, if you believe other Australians need these tools, then do your part. Like this video to signal boost it, subscribe so you're part of the ongoing conversation, and share it. Spread the diagnosis.